Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone's doing well. The podcast that you're about to watch is something that was probably one of the favorite and best ones that I think I've done so far. Great content. We just get right into it, so there's not really a formal introduction, but James is a great guy. He's a supplement shop manager at Rock Bottom, and I think you guys will really enjoy. Watch to the end. I know it's long, but it's a great watch, and I think there's a lot of knowledge that you guys will benefit from and enjoy. So enjoy, guys. Peace.
That's fine. What do you want to start? What do you want to start with?
Perfect.
You were telling me that you like things to do with the brain. Let's soften you up a little bit. When did you first learn about lucid dreaming?
Lucid dreaming. So I personally had a really crazy experience with lucid dreaming probably like a year and a half ago, where I know one of the strategies is that you wake up, you stay awake for a few hours, and then you go back to bed. I inadvertently did that, where I woke up, I did some things, and then I was like, you know what, this is like the one day where I want to take a nap. And then I remember falling asleep, but being so conscious while falling asleep. Like I knew, like I could feel it as it was happening, and then suddenly I felt like something hit me in the back of the head, like someone with a mallet just came up and smacked me. But I remember feeling it, and then suddenly I was in a dream, and I knew that I was there. I remembered falling asleep, and it was just fascinating to me. And then I started looking at other studies where people would where you can, like, thinking about a skill will allow you to like improve the neural pathways and improve, like,
Right.
being able to improve at the skill. And I'm like, you know what? This is fascinating. Like, what if us humans can take advantage of lucid dreaming to like practice to encounter fears, to just become better? So, what are your takes on this all?
You mean like my personal experiences?
Yeah, like how have you experienced lucid dreaming?
The first time I guess I was maybe I guess 4 or 5, and I used to have really really bad dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember I used to have a series of bad dreams, and I started recognizing that it was a pattern of fear in the dreams I never felt in reality. So we got to the point where that when that pattern of fear hit, I could trigger, wait, I'm dreaming, and then wake myself up. And then after a while, I would spot that pattern earlier and be able to trigger, wait, I'm dreaming, wait, maybe I don't have to wake up. And I could start maneuvering around and doing things of my own volition in the
Yeah.
dream. So even though it's in the dream, I could like talk and speak as if I was dreaming. I mean, as if I was awake while I was dreaming.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that stuff is just, it's fascinating in general. And then you get to like the inception stuff, where like, what if
Mhm.
this can be like used for like practical purposes? Do you think we'll ever see a drug or some form of cognitive enhancer where we'll be able to trigger lucid dreaming at will, compared to just the random like strategies that you can use to like maybe reach it?
Oh, so yeah, or at least more often anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, there's like strategies you can do now, but yeah, I'm sure there will be. I mean, they probably need to do more experiments with like an fMRI or something like that to see actually what's lighting up during a lucid dream versus a non-lucid dream. And there might even be a study out there I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
But that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you had a chance,
Sorry.
there's some cool things you can say and do in dreams that are lucid that supposedly are kind of cool. Like one thing you can do is say your own name. That's supposed to be interesting. You
Huh.
can say it out loud. It's supposed to create like a dynamic effect, like kind of reattach you to your ego. I don't know if it really does it or not.
That's fascinating.
What's fun is when you tell somebody else that they're part of your dream
Yes.
in the dream.
That was when I was a child. That was one of my first like experiences where like I knew that I was in a dream, and I remember trying to like convince one of my best friends that we were in a dream and we had to get out, and it was just the craziest, most mind blowing thing ever.
That is kind of cool. The same thing happened to me, and I said it was actually funny too. So I said, "You're a figment of my, you realize I'm dreaming right now, and you're just a figment of my imagination." And he said, and this is funny. His dream self said, "How do you know that I'm just not sharing the dream with you on some unconscious level?" And I
That's
said,
freaky.
"Well, I really can't argue with that. So why don't you call me when you wake up?" And of course, he never called me. And then when I remembered to bring it up to him like a few weeks later, he didn't remember it. So
Yeah, that's dream sharing. If I could pick one technology, people think space would be cool. I think being able to share your dream with a person and them to like actually be in the dream versus just a figment of your own imagination. Being able to interact with somebody and for them to be able to interact with you on like the same plane level.
right.
That'd be fascinating. I think if somebody ever creates that piece of technology, it'd be ridiculous. You know,
That would be pretty cool. I wouldn't want to be necessarily in somebody else's nightmare, though.
that would be terrifying. Yeah. Yeah.
I have to request record permission from the meeting host.
Um, Go ahead if you want to do that. I'll look and see if something pops up.
Yeah, you
Oh,
get it?
I haven't gotten.
It doesn't make much of a difference if you don't, but
Yeah, I can send you the file. To
yeah, that's what we do later. Just we'll just cherry pick some stuff and I'll put it together in like my own little video thing, and then I'll link it to your video.
I really appreciate it.
It gives me 3 minutes of content too. Do you mean?
Yeah,
Anything gets more content.
For sure. Probably don't have a lot of people coming by in the pandemic.
When you first started working out, did you know what the hell you were doing, or did you just walk in the gym and go, "I think I know what I'm doing"?
So funny thing was, I knew lift weight to get big, and just about that. I remember
Okay.
the first time I trained, I put a plate on the bar for bench, and I couldn't even lift it off the rack. I thought I was gonna be huge. I thought I had a pretty impressive level of strength. Freshman.
45 plates?
What's up?
You put 45-pound plates on the rack on the bar.
Yep, just 135 on the bench. So
Okay.
very basic level of weight. I remember thinking I'm gonna smoke this. This is gonna be easy. I was a cross country run at the time, and I was lean but not shredded, but not like muscular
Right.
either. Just like a very like basic level. And I put that on the bar. And I thought I could lift it up, and I was just like, nope. So it kind of humbled me a little bit. And then I remember I just wanted big arms. I just wanted to have these big pipes. So I trained arms and shoulders every day for
Right.
4 months straight. And I remember
Okay.
by the time I was like done with that, I couldn't put my arms above my midline without like excruciating pain. So I saw a doctor, one of my a chiropractor, and he's like, you know what, you need to space this training out. You have to have rest. And for a second, I thought like all my training's gonna go away, but I like took him up
Right.
on that and started like spacing out body parts on different days, just very like looking up chest workout, back workout. And that's when I
Right.
started getting a pretty decent level of development. But yeah, just my high school gym during cross country season. I actually got injured, and that was what put me in there. So I was like, I'm supposed to be on the elliptical, but I was like, you know what? My running season's probably over. This is going to be time for me to get jacked and big, and then just kind of took off after there.
That makes sense. What about when you start figuring out the food?
Nutrition was my sophomore year. That was when I didn't really care about size anymore. I wanted abs, like most teenage boys do. And so I joined the swim team, and that in a combination with a caloric deficit,
Right.
just basic tracking calories, I lost probably 30 pounds in a month, which was
Hmm.
crazy. It wasn't the smartest way. I lost a pretty decent amount of muscular tissue too, along with such a huge cut. Like 600 calorie deficit, along with swimming 3 hours a day, really does a ton to your body. So,
Oh yeah.
and then I started researching more about protein, learned about just maintaining a good balance between carbs and fats. You don't have to track them to like a super intense level, but just knowing what you're eating. I through trial and error, I found out what my calorie maintenance was, and then I bulked on that, and then it's just been slowly acquiring information past that, just learning about different vitamins, and protein as well.
That's cool.
Yeah. How did you get into fitness? What was your gym story?
I mean, it was nothing really, really dramatic. I just wanted to work out. I did martial arts when I was younger. Before then, for a few years, so you get a background in push-ups, pull-ups, the whole 9 yards. And you know what? I was always kind of leg heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had big legs from like the beginning. I played soccer and stuff like that, and I kind of wanted my upper body to match my legs, so I just started working out. And I remember it's funny that you said 135. I wouldn't go to the gym until I could start benching 135 for sets.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, I remember being like my freshman year in high school, just doing push-up after push-up after push-up, so they came out my ears. So I go there and start with like 10 reps on 135. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize at that point, especially moving on to actually we're adults that couldn't do 135 for sets, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Think about it. So it wouldn't have been that big a deal, but the ego always kind of kicks in there.
Yeah, when you hit that 135 mark, for me it was it took so long for me to hit that. When I failed on the bar, I didn't bench at all after that, and obviously my bench
Right.
didn't improve. So I attempted like after like my first year lifting, like the end of the school year, I attempted 135, and I think I got it for like 2 or 3. And I thought I was huge at that time. And like looking back at it now, it's just like it's not a ton, but like when you look at other high schoolers and what they're lifting, especially the ones who just kind of do whatever they feel like, and maybe once a month, you think you're a lot bigger than you are. But
Mhm.
yeah,
You know, with that being by yourself after you work out, looking in the mirror, very misleading.
it is. It is.
You have an inflated idea of what you look like at that particular moment in time.
Yeah, I remember there's one quote I think Dom Rossetti said in one of his videos, but it's like the day you start lifting is that day you'll never be small enough. But for me, when I started lifting, I thought I was huge, and then like after you start getting an idea, you see the freaks of the internet, the Stephen
Oh,
Cows, the David Lades, you realize that how small you really are.
I'd probably use bigger guys than that if I'm going to use freaks of the internet. But like I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. A lot of people when you first start, if you're year one, these guys look really big.
Mhm.
If you're year 4 or 5, they shouldn't look that big to you. Otherwise, it's kind of a problem. Do you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Year 4 or 5 is probably. I'm in my fourth year of lifting right now,
Yeah,
but
you should be fairly big by now. You should be a good 25, 30 pounds heavier at least
Mhm.
than
yeah.
you're without that.
My weight progression was I'm just looking at it on paper. So I went from like 170 I bulked up to like 180 for my first year lifting, just a good probably 10 pounds of muscle mass, and then I
Right.
dropped down to 148. Just lost a ton of fat,
Yeah.
a pretty moderate amount of muscle, and then I bulked up to 220.
Oh, wow.
And then I was feeling I got to the point where I looked in the mirror. I was like, you know what? They need to rein my bulk in a little bit. So I'm
That's
hanging at about a 196 right now.
okay.
Yeah,
Which is significantly bigger than you would have been if you never worked out.
exactly, and at a lower body fat too. So I'm not really worried about. I think Instagram. You see these, like what you said. You see these really big guys who are just extremely lean year round. Maybe they use a little bit of Photoshop or there's the manipulation in the mirror with angles and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it really like destroys your like idea of like what you want to look like. So for me, it's like as long as I'm improving, I'm happy. As long as that I'm making progress in the gym, as long as I'm learning, I can be happy with that. I don't have to have a 4 plate bench in 2 years from now on. As long as I see 20, 30 pounds add to my bench every year, I'm happy with that. And I think a lot of team lifters, especially, they have to realize that they're not going to be Mr. Olympia a year and a half into lifting, or even 2 years, or even ever, honestly.
Figure Instagram aesthetic male, physique guys are actually doing to men now what models have always done to women.
Yep.
Even that kind of inferiority complex, because like, if you look at the women on your Explore page on your Instagram, half of them are perfect. They don't look like that in real life.
Exactly.
They lack pores. They wouldn't be human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the same thing with a guy. A good lighting can put 30 pounds on you in terms of your appearance. So if you're a lean guy and you have some muscle mass and the lighting and the angle can put 20, 30 pounds on you, you look like a freaking monster.
Yeah, I remember like what a really good example for me was a year or maybe two into lifting. I had a pretty decent base. I said I had the right meal. My glycogen. I was just really fueled up and full, and I had a pretty decent level of leanness. And I just had the perfect gym lighting. And that photo from that period of time, 2 years ago, still looks better than how I feel like I look now. Yeah, it's crazy what you can really do, especially just combine the perfect pump, the perfect lighting, the perfect angle. It can really distort.
It's like chasing a high. I used to tell people, listen, the worst thing that ever happens to everybody is you see yourself in your mind's eye the way you saw yourself in the perfect lighting at the perfect pump when you were in a good mood and a little delusional. And you remember that, and it gets better and better the more you take it out and polish memory.
Yeah.
Until eventually it's this standing thing, and then you just can't live up to that thing again. Do you mean? Or until the next time you get to the next high point.
The dopamine levels you had at that moment just really like took a photo of what you feel like you should look like for like the rest of your life.
All emotion tied up to it. Yeah, so everything goes with it. It's like a manifestation. In fact, if you wanted to sum it up again, every time you look in the mirror, you should smell something unique.
Yeah.
Because olfactory impulses actually go back to memories that you built around them. Yeah. So you can probably create a little bit more of that dopamine rush if you really wanted to.
I remember around my second year of lifting, I kind of just realized like I remember like even with a pump, like it didn't even compare to the photos I took. So I started wearing sweatshirts every day to the gym. I would refuse to look at mirrors except for my form, and kind of humbled me a little bit. I realized that you weren't really as big as you are, and I feel like people really need to like hone in the mindset of just trying to be better versus comparing themselves to the guy next door who is massive and jacked out of his mind.
You're on different timelines.
Yep.
It's like, if you collect $1 a day, you can't compare yourself to the person who's 300 days ahead of you. Do you know what I mean? That's just you just haven't been there yet.
Or as twice the naturally occurring muscle nuclei that you have. Genetics do have a huge, I wouldn't say that hard work doesn't beat out genetics, but it does have a pretty significant effect, especially on your physique and development.
Yeah, it's always hard to say with genetics though, because it's first of all, it's always difficult to norm it out. Like we don't know what it is. Most of the people that come in here that have problems, they don't necessarily have bad genetics. They just have bad diet and training programs. Do you mean?
True.
Like they're trying to lose weight, but their calories are too high. They're trying to gain weight, but their calories are too low.
Yep.
Then on top of that, when they train, they're there to do their days. You spend 3 hours in the gym to do 15 sets. So basically, they just off for about 3 hours straight. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And that's what their workout is, which works for a long time, because in the beginning stages everything works. So you get spoiled,
Mm-hmm.
But after a year and a half, 2 years, the people start bitching and complaining about it. Other people just don't know how to do a little bit more every time, do a little more intensity, increase the intensity and decrease it. One of the things that the real experts used to do before drugs was they would start adding sets and decreasing rest time between the sets. And that was really a symbol of how conditioned you are.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were doing a relatively heavy weight for 4 sets, right?
Yep.
eventually they get down to like 25 seconds rest between those sets, 30 seconds rest. The person who's taking 2 minutes would be considered to be a deconditioned person. You
Yeah.
need that much time for recovery in order to do the next set.
Pretty basic form of periodization out there, you know.
Yeah, periodization and then, cumulative fatigue.
Yeah, for sure. For somebody who's wanting to get into fitness, maybe want to put on a decent bit of muscle and doesn't really know a terribly lot about lifting, is there any basic form of periodization that you'd recommend that they'd follow?
Well, if we took a rank beginner, you tell them to go in and play, but you just pick a push-pull,
Mhm.
one exercise per body part,
Yeah.
maybe 3 sets, and have them do it 3-4 days a week.
Yeah.
And not even all that heavy, just have them push it up a little bit in like a small pyramid. That way they come close to hitting maybe the last set they hit for maybe 5 or 6 reps, because you don't want to be too sore at first.
Yeah.
You can probably get up to the first year and be fine.
Yeah, people. I feel like nowadays, especially it's volume, just volume. People hitting high volume workouts, high intensity workouts for three to 4 hours at a time, and when in reality you can hit a good solid workout in 45 minutes to an hour and a half and have almost the same results. Because when you heat, it's the theory of diminishing return. When you're working out for so long, it's the first few sets that really matter, and then after that, it's maybe that extra 1 to 5% of just really destroying your muscles that you can truly get out of it.
Well, don't forget too, most people are playing their workouts around how much time they want to be in the gym, not the workout themselves. So a lot of people love to be in the gym. It's a social thing for them. They receive validation.
Yes.
Hey, big guy. Hey, dude. Oh my God, you look so good today. Oh my God, what do you do for your biceps? You know what I mean? Could you show me? Oh, your legs. Oh my, they're just amazing. Have I told you that you should compete? You haven't competed? The guys just eat this stuff up. I mean, they've got like the canary grin on their face. You see that a lot with a lot of like really, really bigger kind of juiced out guys that are kind of like not really real long into it, but the juice gave them gains really fast.
Yep.
And they saw a real fast adoration from people. And then they kind of like being the expert in the gym and kind of telling people what to do. And the only time you'll ever see them work out really hard is when they're training somebody else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're kind of showing off what they can do. Otherwise, they take forever in there. They're chatting with everybody back and forth. It's kind of funny. They're maintaining a social life there instead of outside the gym, which they should be doing, really. That's a value judgment.
Yeah. I think of it as like a mix, just trying to, if you're going to have fun with people, but accomplish what you want to accomplish first, hit all of your heavy sets, do all your heavy stuff, and maybe talk with the guy who's lifting next to you. Just get to know somebody, but really try to accomplish what you're there for. What you're actually there for is just to get huge.
Well, you know what? I should get a t-shirt. You have no friends. Listen to me. I'm going to rant for a second. You have no friends in the gym. There are no friends in the gym. There's enemies and there's adversaries, and that's it.
That's hilarious.
All right? There are no friends in the gym. And the next time somebody comes up to you and goes, what do you do to work out? You just go, I usually don't talk to anybody. I don't listen to my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's hard for me. I was always that kid who would wanted to ask the big guys, like, how do you get big? And so like whenever somebody like some high schooler, I'm not even me being like at a pretty decent point right now. Obviously it's naturally attainable, like what most physiques are. Anyone can really get to it with a solid 3 to 4 years of training, good nutrition, not terribly good genetics, but like there is a certain point when talking to people does become a little too much, and you should just really focus on yourself first.
Well, I mean, obviously, if somebody's sincere and they come up to you and they would help. What I'm really talking about is avoid chatting with your friends in the gym like it's friend time. Like you don't have a social life outside the gym. You have no life outside the gym. You don't make any friends outside the gym. So the only place you can do it is there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people like that. You know what the funniest thing that I realized, and it took a long time too, was most people that you meet in the gym, I don't really want to speak for the girls, but definitely guy-wise, don't necessarily have the best social skills.
Yep. Yeah.
They weren't the most popular kid in school a lot of times. They weren't the big socially active person. They weren't, do you mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and then the gym gives them that extra something, but they don't necessarily work on their social skills outside the gym.
I totally agree with you. The reason why a lot of those guys start lifting is because of the lack of confidence and just wanting to be able to feel good about themselves. And I think that's probably part of the reasons why I got into fitness several years ago. Just kind of got beat down a little bit in life, maybe want to look a little bit better, feel a little bit happier in my body, and that's how I got into it. And I think that's why so many teenagers nowadays get into it. I think the guys who probably took the most crap or maybe got bullied the most, they have the most motivation, the most mental grit, and just really that internal motivation, that internal desire, that internal locus of control to get better versus...
We're putting it.
Yeah.
They feel like they're in control. And something they do has immediate dopamine gratification. They feel it. They feel good. You get adrenaline rush. You feel that positive effect.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty. And every time you do that, you feel it. That's a nice little reward that they've got going for them that they don't normally have. And I got to admit, you can really thank things like Instagram and YouTube for that more than anything else, because I think the growth of like kind of the physique guy in that which is kind of a lean guy that doesn't have a huge amount of muscle,
Mm-hmm.
but that really appeals to guys that never did any athletics. They never did any kind of strength sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't have a huge amount of muscle mass. And maybe they were a little bit scrawny, and you feel that as a guy. Let's face it. In the back of your head, when you're smaller than the average person, or smaller than your athlete, you kind of feel that in the back of your head. It's like a little bit of like oh my God, look. But anyway, with Instagram and YouTube, you can make those people look even bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now people look at that and they go, wow, that's attainable. I mean, I can't be the monster over there. I couldn't be like even a bodybuilder at a local show.
Yeah.
A real bodybuilder at a bodybuilding contest at a local show has an extraordinary amount of muscle on a body comparison. But
Mm-hmm.
a physique guy, that's doable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's an aesthetic I could do. And so you see a lot of that kind of like all of a sudden more and more people did it because, I mean, even like 6-7 years ago before Instagram and YouTube became a big thing, most people I saw in the gym were really ex-athletes more than anything else. I mean, there's other people that went there for fitness, but it seemed like a lot of them were people that did strength training before, you know?
Yeah, for me, I'd say I can see where you're coming from with that remark, but I almost see like the athletes, the ones who do football, you know, who maybe train other sports. They're the ones who don't really stick to the weightlifting routines. I feel like the most. You know, the football players in my school, I pretty decent level of strength, but I lift every single one of them. Being a person who's not terribly strong, you know, I feel like it almost should be the other way around. They're the ones who think that. I think that they've been set up a little bit too far in their minds, where they think they're with the skills that they have, they don't need to train at all. Like, you know, they're just good the way they are. And so I see a lot of non-athletes and the ones who just don't really have any experience with weights or with sports hitting it the hardest.
Yeah, you're definitely going to have that a lot too, because you know you had to work out with your strength sports for the most part. I mean,
yeah,
especially if you were in a good program. A good program required you to do it, you know, so you had to do it. So a percentage of them would then go on and work out later, but it was only a smaller percentage, obviously, than the entire amount. But that was still larger than the percentage of people that were just in the general population doing it. I mean,
yeah.
But now it's really come a long way in the other direction, I think, and a lot of that has to do with going back to social gratification too. You know, if you were the strength athlete, you were probably a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you weren't great, and you probably had an overinflated idea of yourself too. And you know, you played a sport that gave you a little bit of status in the, you know, whatever teenage realm that the world is sometimes. Did I just conk out?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
You see me?
Yep, that works.
Okay, that kind of sucks.
Hey, you had a nice setup going on.
Yeah, I know, right? I think my camera's actually broken. It won't seem to power on.
Oh no!
Power thing, yeah.
Oh, that sucks, man.
Kind of.
Yeah, well, maybe wait 6 months. You might be able to order a new one.
Right.
Yeah.
Take forever otherwise. So what's up?
Where were we? Kind of forgot.
I think we're talking about your basic like what's it called? What were we talking about? Beginner lifting.
Yeah.
Oh, people. Yeah, we're kind of saying that we thought that people that derive the most social status would stick with the longest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of that. What errors and misconceptions? I mean, you probably have a ton of people who come in who are beginners, you know, just trying to get supplements to get big. What common errors and like just misconceptions about lifting do you generally encounter from beginners walking into rock bottom?
I mean, the problem is everything kind of works to a certain extent until it stops working, man.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times, especially if it's been a while, like gains are so incremental, it's sometimes hard to say what's working or whether you're not being patient.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
And somewhere in that avenue is where people seem to make the most misconceptions. Like, I very rarely probably seen anybody that train too hard, but I definitely have seen people train not hard enough. They don't have enough progressive. I hate to use the word progressive overload because everybody uses the word progressive. Don't keep training harder, so to speak. Do you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everyone probably falls into that at some point. So you just get a little bit too complacent with your training. You're not really pushing yourself as hard as you can, and that's kind of how like I noticed it for home workouts. You know, you have a lot more motivation to really push yourself because you're scared that you're going to lose your muscle mass. So for me, like I'm actually sore like at the end of my home workouts, even though I'm not really pushing a ton of weight. I picked up some gym equipment. I emailed my local gym owners. Just like, hey, do you mind if I come in and borrow some stuff? So he let me take a bench and some pairs of dumbbells. So I have some stuff now, but you just really realize like you could be training harder. Like ask yourself, are you training hard? And ask yourself, can you train harder? And you can probably always be training harder.
Well, another thing they do is they start keep adding more and more sets and more exercises because they've read about them.
Yep.
And they're not thinking necessarily, are they just tweaking the muscle? So what they do is tweak the muscle and it'll start growing.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep tweaking it to create momentum. and you keep doing it to create a long-term effect, right? So that's really what you're looking for. But what they'll start doing is by adding more and more sets and more exercises, because that's what they think they should do. They end up taking more and more time between those sets and exercises, which decrease the intensity of what they're doing.
Yep. Half their workout is spent figuring out how to do an exercise properly, or now they're not realizing like what they actually have to do, like really focusing on the squeeze. Mind muscle connection is huge. Like people don't realize like just doing the motion doesn't mean you're actually getting the workout in. You got to make sure you're squeezing, just driving blood, making sure like for benching, I see a lot of people with the rounded in shoulders and they're wondering why their bench isn't getting big, just really opening up the muscle. And I think form is huge. Like you might not look big pulling like the little dumbbells, but you will get big from pulling the smaller dumbbells if you're doing it right. Ego lifting, especially at a high school level, it's huge. You get kids coming up putting as much weight as they can at the deadlift bar, and then they look like cats, scared cats, going all the way up. And then they throw off like 5 discs in their back and can't lift properly for the rest of life.
Well, yeah, that's true. Another way to think about it too would be, and this is kind of understandable. When you're a beginner, you just want to hit the next level. The next piece of strength, the next piece of size. It's a little bit like playing a video game. You don't want to do all the side missions if the primary mission can advance you. Do you mean?
Yep.
And then once you feel comfortable, hit a higher level, then maybe you go back and do the little stuff and tell everybody they should have done the little stuff anyway, but you didn't do it.
Yep.
Everybody skips because they try to get bigger faster. So if things like bench press or deadlifts, you tend to cheat because you want to put up more weight.
Yeah.
So bench pressing, you want to put up more weight. So it's not about I did this amount 10 clean, I've been 30 pounds heavier dirty. Do you mean?
Yeah. And then you also see people too. They think they're progressing because they're hitting more weight, but their depth is getting lower. They're maybe bouncing it too much off their chest, and then they get really into the habit of just, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but they start compromising and doing all the stuff they shouldn't be doing to get the higher number, and then they end up injured and demotivated, and then all their numbers go down, and it just really gets they get themselves in a bad frame of mind. And I think at a high schooler level, form just needs to be taught first. And I think most of the football coaches that I've encountered, they're pretty good about that. But for other people, they're benching and the bar is like sideways as they're going up, or they're deadlifting and it's just disgusting. And form for me, I never really pushed myself in the beginning. So like form, I had decent form, but even still, I can't do conventional deadlifts because my back just gets too rounded. So pull sumo.
Well, generally too, for most things that you're doing, unless they're ridiculously heavy, the lift kind of corrects itself. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to lift at a certain plane. I mean, some things are technically harder. Like if you were doing a snatch or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You better know how to do a snatch. You just better know how to do that stuff. But other things are just kind of fairly basic, like a squat, stuff like that. As long as you just don't get weird with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost a skill in essence, like learning some of these exercises, like something you have to practice. Warm up and just make sure you have the motor pathways, just know what to do and stuff like that. And it's just where so many kids go wrong. Do you ever have any kids coming in asking where they can buy anabolic steroids?
We always get, you always get questions like that, stuff like that. Although you'd be surprised the amount of people are like, at least they say that they would never do anything at all. Do you mean?
Yeah. James is in the neighborhood anabolic dealer at the local gym.
No, not that.
Yeah. It's probably.
Plus we sell all the pro hormones and SARMs anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take something, you don't really need to break the law to do it. Do you mean?
Exactly.
And by the time you're through your SARMs and your pro hormones, you're a pretty big boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're about as big as you're going to get without taking some serious drugs for some serious amounts of time.
Yeah. A lot of my friends and me, I know a lot of people who want to like take SARMs, but you need to have like a really good, even before like considering that stuff, you need to have a good base. You need to know how to do stuff. Otherwise, you might get a little bit bigger, but it just won't be really worth it. So I don't ever see myself probably taking those kind of things. Health is wealth in my opinion, and I know that there are some side benefits to stuff that's as small as it may be. I just don't want to risk it. Take years off my life.
Well, it's the long stretch you use against people. You're out of the gate, you're racing, you're sprinting, you're making great gains, you're dodging back and forth, blah, 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 blah. Then you reach like year 3 and there's a long stretch of almost nothing in front of you. Do you mean?
Yep.
Incremental gains. That's when you see people go, I know I said I wouldn't do it, but I'm so much more mature now. I'm looking at it so much more. I understand. And then they start rationalizing. Now I understand all the risks. Now I can make an informed choice. You're still talking about the same body greed, but they phrase it differently. Yeah. Like I've literally had people come in there and stick their nose against the glass for like a year and a half straight, every other day, just talking about the SARMs and the pro hormones, and then eventually they'll take the plunge. And then the worst part about it, a lot of times they won't do it right because they're so afraid of it. They'll take a half-ass dose, like half of it, and every other day, and get really mediocre results, and probably for the same health ramifications they would have gotten if they take it straight through.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
I hear a lot of people who go on these crazy steroid cycles and then they can't ever go off them because the body dysmorphia, kicks in. The second they start losing muscle mass, the second they don't look stage ready, it just hits them like a brick wall. It destroys how they view training too, to the point where it's just pursuing that next dopamine rush, pursuing the next little bit of muscle gain, the next PR. It's definitely an addiction.
Think about it. You could take 6 months to hit your next level of development, or you could do it in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Your choice. And then worse, you get to see other people do it in 3 weeks.
Yep.
You're like, that really sucks. Another thing that steroids do that makes it really hard for people to adjust not to doing them is it makes everything harden up. So because the way you're holding water, even your body fat looks like muscle.
Yep.
So even your body fat looks hard. So when you take that away, not only are you smaller, but everything tends to sag a bit.
Yeah. It just breaks people's mindsets on training, Has to be about yourself, has to be about self-improvement. But yeah, people can do whatever they want, in the end. Telling somebody not to do steroids isn't going to make them not do steroids. It has to come from themselves.
Telling them not to do steroids, about like telling someone not to smoke pot.
That too, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
how do you think one develops the mindset that keeps them going long term? There's so many people who go to the gym for these really big spurts, they hit some really hard workouts, but what keeps them going, for years at a time versus months or versus weeks even?
it becomes a hobby for some people, a habit for other people. The derived benefit becomes really good. Like we talked about before, you get that social status from it. But it's really hard too because you're looking at it from the point of view of you've been training for 3-4 years, 5 years tops. What about 10 years? You know what I mean? What about 15 years? What about 20 years? Most people kind of fall in and out depending on their jobs and stuff like that. Some people stick with it all the way through. But most people that do it for long enough will always come back to it.
Yeah.
They'll slide in and out of it. And that's what you'll probably see the most of. Like, even when you miss some time, you'll eventually want to get back into it. Where they usually screw you up a lot is, let's say you're working and going to school. You might not find it as much time to do stuff like that as you normally would do. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And let's say you're working, going to school, and had a girlfriend.
True.
Girlfriends take a lot of time up, you mean?
They do.
You start adding all that kind of time up. It's like, well, now how much time do you have? And the mistake a lot of people make there is they don't realize that they can do shorter workouts and maintain what they're doing. You can do 15, 20-minute workouts and really knock yourself out with it.
I read a study where it takes 1/9 of the volume and just the overall workout intensity to be able to maintain muscle. It's so much harder to grow than it is to maintain.
Yeah, you figure your body's more designed to maintain than it is to grow.
Exactly.
But yeah, you did push-ups in between your times you work out, you can probably maintain most of your look at least.
Yeah, I remember I went to volunteer at a camp for 3 weeks, and I just had home workouts, a pair of 20-pound dumbbells. I think I even came out even a little bit bigger after that. You're not going to lose. You're not taking one rest day or even a week off, a week to 2 weeks isn't going to make you lose any gains. And if you're training hard, if you're doing what you can with bodyweight workouts, just pushing yourself hard, doing different variations, you can really get a pretty good stimulus on your muscles and maintain and maybe even grow.
Yeah, without a doubt. Again, everything works. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can make incremental. You're gonna make, and if you can get yourself to the point where you're making a pump and you're feeling that kind of, oh my god, you know what I mean? That spasm of growth.
Yep.
You're gonna make some incremental gains, and then the longer you're at it, the less big those gains are, no matter what. Anyway, I mean, after 4 or 5 years of training, you're not gaining very much weight in a year.
Yeah.
You're just not, unless you just really screwed up this entire time. Where you can really manipulate stuff though is like the way you're holding water and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking to a little bit more of like the scientific side of lifting, does sarcoplasmic training, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, where like you're really you're getting the fluid volume inside your muscles versus the size of the muscle fiber, the contractile strength of myofibrillar hypertrophy, does that improve your strength training? Like, I know that there's a lot of carryover, but just fully seeking sarcoplasmic, will you get high numbers on single rep movements?
Well, strength is more complicated.
Yeah.
Because strength has to do with myofibrillar cross-section too, but it also has to do with a mind-muscle connection. So, for example, when you see somebody get hit by lightning and they fly across a room,
it's their muscles
they don't fly
firing.
Exactly.
100%.
You have an amazing amount of strength in your muscle, and there's regulators all throughout your body to keep yourself from using them too much. So part of that is just getting that connection going, that force. But you can be very, very strong, very, very light.
Yeah.
Like proportionally extremely strong. So it seems that overall, the myofibrillar training, what we consider to be myofibrillar training, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
I,
has more to do, treating that way seems to have more to do with strength,
mm-hmm.
or at least immediately in strength, in the most, because it seems to be, it's something that definitely mechanical tension,
Yep.
you know what I mean, is definitely improving that. And that's putting you back to an effective rep range. And an effective rep range is where you're getting that maximum 100% muscle recruitment.
Yeah.
And that's where that is. You know, the sarcoplasmin becomes a lot more complicated because we're talking about mitochondrial development in your muscle, also glycogen,
The plasma,
also,
the vacuoles, all the
yeah, everything kind of moving and swelling. You know, but it reminds me a little bit of like, did you ever see those things where like add an inch to your arm in a day?
yeah.
You know, you're creating a swelling effect in your arms, and you know it's too much of a pump when you're creating. Obviously, you're not putting on muscle that way, and it does seem like sarcoplasmic growth is the first one to go away,
Mm-hmm.
but it also comes back pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
So now, what if we understand the cross-sectional tissue doesn't deplete that quickly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're probably more likely to keep that meaty look. Do you mean?
Yeah.
The more you, because it's just real tissue. Whereas the other stuff is more of an adaptive mechanism that seems a little different.
Yeah.
It's almost if you were growing bone versus fluid around bones. You mean?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
keep the bone, but you don't keep the other stuff around it as much. That's a bad analogy. You kind of get the point. That seems to be where they're at with it, because those really are big arguments with sarcoplasmic training matter, whether it even existed for a long time, you know, and they didn't really know how to like talk about pump training as much,
Mm-hmm.
but then they realized didn't have maybe as much direct on the muscle. Do you mean?
Yeah. Speaking.
And a lot of it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say, and a lot of it is manipulation of water. So if we had like a problem area, we'd want to increase the amount of water you're basically holding, or you know, the amount of glycogen that muscle is holding. So we might do more reps more often for that area. Do you mean to create like a better? But obviously, if you're doing that for 2 weeks and you get a better look, you know, how much myofibril tissue did you increase? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably not that much.
It's a fascinating subject. Speaking to that pump, I know beta alanine's a pretty good pump product. Funny story. First of all, the first time I took beta alanine, it took like a double scoop of pre-workout. You know, trying to get hyped as I could. I didn't know what beta alanine was, and so I take this crazy pre-workout. And I remember I was sitting at my kitchen table, and I got that crazy pinprick feeling all over my body. Except it was excruciating, and I thought that I thought I was having this allergic reaction. You know, I rushed to like the.
All red and blotchy.
All red and blotchy, about to go start freaking out and calling people. Well, it went away eventually, but vasodilation. For what would you recommend to people who want to maybe not like to get the most like effective pump in a sense, just the most blood flow, not really.
Believe it or not, the beta alanine isn't supposed to be a major pump thing. It's supposed to be more for endurance for your muscle, because it's supposed to produce more carnosine.
Okay.
And the carnosine is supposed to increase overall endurance, so you should be less fatigued and you should be able to do more than you normally would, right?
Yeah.
The vasodilation actually doesn't make you necessarily more pumped at all, really. Believe it or not, it's the same histamine response you get from sex. That same kind of blotchy, red, assuming you're really excited. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's the same histamine response. Or niacin does the same thing too. Vitamin B3. It creates that flushed effect.
Yeah.
But that's not going to your muscle. Kind of like Viagra does. Well, actually, that's a bad example because Viagra does pump you up. But if you want to get a better pump in the gym, probably citrulline or agmatine sulfate.
Yep.
Or both. 6 grams of citrulline a day is just wonderful. 6 grams of citrulline straight, which would be like 10 grams of citrulline malate.
Okay.
To get the same effect.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever dose of agmatine sulfate recommends seems to work really well.
Okay.
But most of your pump when you see it in the gym anyway is just the fact that you were lifting. And then, believe it or not, even the coffee and your pre-workouts to give you more adrenaline. The adrenaline itself is giving you better pump. You mean if nothing else, because the workout's more intense.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of times, like the workouts where I feel the best, you know, have the most adrenaline, the most dopaminic reaction are the ones where I just look the best. It's not based off of how I looked, but it's the ones where I have the best pump or just the best overall fullness with lifting. But off that pre-workout, you know, 1,3-dimeth is a pretty popular stimulant. I know one of the variants has been outlawed by the FDA. Which of the three? There's 3 variants, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, the 3 variations of it. DMA, DMHA, and then the AMP citrate.
Okay. Which one of those?
And there's also a clone of DMHA called 5-amino, not the 2,4 that it is, but there's a little bit different. Juglans.
I've never heard of that.
Yes, it's supposed to be similar to that kind of thing. Give you the same kind of effect.
Okay. Which one of those would you recommend to somebody who just wants to get the most hyped? You know, they're not really worried about the long-term health effects, but
well, it's hard to find any kind of AMP citrate at all. You can still find DMA and DMHA, probably not online though. You'd have to know somebody that sells it in one of those
Jack
stores.
3D, the old stuff.
Yeah, like we still have one with DMHA in it, but I don't think you can get like a GNC or a Vitamin Shop or an Amazon even. Do you mean?
I know
You just
that
have
I
to
think
find.
there's one that like the GNC brand sells under a different name, or it's supposedly supposed to have DMHA or DMA in it. But yeah.
I mean, plus, sorry, I
Go ahead.
was gonna say, but GNC generally doesn't let them that stuff in their stores because of insurance reasons. You know?
Yeah, wasn't there like two soldiers who were like extremely dehydrated? They took it and they had heart attacks or died, something like that.
Well, okay, they died from heat stroke or whatever they were doing like a march or something, but and then they found the they found like the Jack 3D in their stuff, so they made an assumption that there was a correlation because you have a stimulant and you have that, but they never actually proved there was any kind of real connection to it. In fact, I don't think they actually found that much in their blood system. But the problem is they made a big deal out of it.
Yeah,
So actually, they did this big. The DoD, the Defense Department, did this big report on it, and then the FDA jumped the gun and said, "Oh, it's horrible," and gave that as a reason. So they ended up doing is they delayed the release of the report, saying that it wasn't a bad thing, and then buried it someplace so that it was hard to find.
that's funny.
Look stupid, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I've had a product with DMA in it once. It was the old Jack 3D. One of my friends got it off of Amazon or not Amazon. It was some eBay maybe. I don't even know. But that was the day where I hit like 3 PR straight. I don't know if it was like the knowing that I had pre-workout in me or the actual like the product in it. But I remember like I think at the time my deadlift PR was like 515 and I hit like 535 and then like 555 that day and then I benched got like a max rep PR or something like that. But it's crazy like thinking that you're strong like the psychological aspect of lifting has to like actual lifting. I know that the placebo effect just comes into play a ton, especially.
Mm-hmm. Never underestimate belief.
Yeah, it's huge.
Belief is very important.
Exactly.
But in that particular case, it probably was a combination of the pre-workout plus just a good day.
Yeah, yeah. You'll never beat those days where you jump out of bed feeling great. You go and hit. You start off. The first exercise you do, you just feel solid.
I mean, there's definitely everything seems to go right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Also with the flow, I want to expand on this a little. The flow state and lifting. Do you think I think I've encountered or been in at least a flow state many times when I've been lifting. Would you see or would you expect lifters to get into a sort of flow state when they're training, and on a good day?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the flow state really is just a high intensity activity where you feel like you're really focused and you get a bit of a rush. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, they call them the runner's high.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually you see it more with repetitive activities though.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Do you think there's any benefit?
Sorry.
Do you think there's any benefit to taking nootropics before training? Maybe not even like stuff that is considered with like stimulants, just general neurotransmitter.
Well, the better your brain feels, the better you feel. And most of the time, when you don't feel good, it's really your brain failing you, not your body.
True.
Your body can still go do stuff. You know what I mean? You just don't feel. You feel tired. So anything that makes you feel like, whoa, I'd like to go do something. That's a pretty big positive.
Exactly. Do you think at like a more of a physical level, do you think that the neurotransmitters would allow more of like a motor neuron development and just adaptation to the stress?
Yeah, why not? Your brain adapts to what you do. I mean, if you start juggling, they've done studies where they found that the people who started juggling, part of their brain actually grew. The same thing with like learning a new language. So your brain responds to what you do. So if you make your brain more effective, maybe it responds better. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't have a study to point to for that, but it would make sense. If nothing else, it'll feel like things are working better.
Mm-hmm. And if you believe they're working better, they probably will as well too.
Well, I mean, if they're working better, you just don't have a reason why. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's not a placebo, it's an actual effect, and we don't know why it does it. Do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
sometimes we try to make assumptions that we know why it does it. That's theory and hypothesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because of this reason. But sometimes it's like, well, I don't really care how it started the fire. It started the fire, and I needed the fire. Do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What are some of the basic nootropic stacks that you'd recommend just for beginners?
Well, if you had to go over the counter, I'd probably say CB-choline and phosphoserine.
Okay.
Because they're like really they're easy to get and they definitely work.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just feel better.
Yeah.
And then CB-choline, you'll actually get an elevated mood from it too, and you'll feel like definitely more focused and alert. Whereas phosphoserine, you tend to feel just more at your peak all the time.
Yeah.
As far as nootropics go, that you like your smart drugs, you can't really go wrong with starting with paracetam or oxyracetam. I mean, oxyracetam is a stronger version of paracetam, basically. Not the exact thing, but pretty similar. NoPep seems to give you more energy, but you just got to watch your blood pressure with that. Some people get a little bit higher blood pressure with NoPep, but you definitely feel a little more euphoric from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then antidepressant is pretty neat too because it increases dopamine in addition to everything else in your brain. So I played with that a few times, and it's got to play with things and see what you like first.
Okay.
Start with a smaller dose. Start with maybe a quarter, whatever they recommend, and work your way up to see if you need it.
Yeah. I think at a very basic level, caffeine, just starting off with some caffeine too is a pretty decent.
Pretty good, yeah.
And being able to combine that with theanine. I know like
Mm-hmm.
the sold name is suntheanine, the green stuff in the green tea. I'm at some of the days where I was at school and maybe had a cup of coffee, or some of the days where I actually got like the most learning, like the most actual learned stuff out of it too. Yeah. Nootropics?
Don't forget coffee, decreasing your sleepiness in your brain.
Yeah. I know there's also another study done where your parts of your brain can actually be like fully asleep when you're actually awake too. So when you're able to wake those parts up, might react to better learning and just overall better cognition as a whole.
Well, you know what's kind of interesting about that? Like, they really don't understand how the brain works sometimes. They did, I think, in South Africa first. This guy was having some problems. He was in vegetative state, so he's almost in a coma, and he kept like tearing his bed up when he was like there. So they thought, well, maybe he's having problems sleeping. Do you mean not sleeping deeply enough? So they gave him Ambien and woke him up. Woke him out of vegetative state.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and they found that would do that for a lot of people in vegetative states. It wake them up. Maybe not permanently, but wake them up for a while.
Wow,
that's pretty cool, right?
That's awesome.
But you wouldn't expect Ambien to do that. But then you always hear stories about people that take Ambien that maybe sleepwalk, or they wake up, they're outside, or something like that.
Yeah.
They pissed in the sock drawer because they thought it was a bathroom.
Yeah. Are there any nootropics that you'd recommend for somebody who wants to have like crazy dream experiences? I think I remember you saying that you would take them and like doze off, and you'd have some like pretty like out of body stuff or some stuff crazy.
Well, all the racetams would do that for you, probably.
Okay.
Anything that increases dopamine, like sometimes I get the strangest dreams, the most hardcore when I take like a pre-workout and I take a nap. Because I guess with adrenaline, dopamine firing in my brain like that, it's just like, wow. So I'll take a nootropic, I'll take a pre-workout, and I'll go nap for a little while. And if I doze for longer, I'll start dreaming, and the dreams get really intense. That's like I had this really cool, it was a lucid dream. I knew I was dreaming, but I didn't have a lot of control of the dream. But I was being torn apart by sharks. So I had like 2 sharks ripping my arms off, and I could feel the tugging. It was really neat.
Yeah.
And but the cool thing was I could control the fear. So it was just the fact that they were ripping me limb from limb was just unsettling. But,
yeah. that is a pretty interesting dream. I don't know if
that's the kind of dream you get from a pre-workout and nootropics. So
yeah, that does seem a very yeah. Oh my gosh. Would you?
Kind of fun.
Yeah. I don't know for me specifically. I know that I've taken like a pre-workout early in the day, and then even after like I know like caffeine has a half-life of like 5 to 6 hours where it's like full. You don't have like none of the symptoms of being on caffeine. But I remember like I've fallen asleep maybe 12 to 13 hours after taking caffeine, and I've woken up and I've just been hyped out of my mind. Like, and if this is something that's reoccurring too. So where do you think that would come from? Where you're experiencing the symptoms of caffeine after waking up many hours after even taking it, ingesting it?
I mean, that's a good question. Sometimes though, when you sleep lightly, you tend to wake up more alert.
Yeah. And
that could be it, giving you like kind of later sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to do that sometimes. Let's say I could only get 2 or 3 hours sleep, and I had to be someplace. I drink coffee before I went to sleep. And then when I woke up, I was a lot more alert.
I've never even, I don't think I've ever even considered that, taking caffeine to sleep. Hey man,
take caffeine, sleep, and then when you wake up really alert. So it could be an adrenaline thing. You slept lightly. You're kind of probably keyed up to begin with. You mean?
Yeah.
When you wake up, you're up.
Yeah, I've also heard about other things too, where your heart rate is so used to being elevated that it thinks that is the homeostasis, and it tries to maintain that by just shooting your heart rate up at various points out of your day. One of the reasons why I slowed down my caffeine use was after taking a lot of it one day, it was all out of my system, or I thought it was, and then I suddenly just got hit by this. I've never been a person prone to like anxiety attacks, but I just got hit by this rush of fear and just alertness. And I could feel like my heart beating out of my chest. I could feel my pulse my hand was literally on the table, and it was moving up and down because my pulse was just that hard. And so it's interesting like how our bodies adapt to like the foreign stimulus placed upon it and just try to maintaining it as a whole. Yeah.
A lot of times too when that happens, believe it or not, it's your stomach bothering you. And it'll act like a weird thing or make you feel really uneasy.
That's interesting. Like the gut microbiome? Or
no, just kind of like almost like a gastric reflex would be without being high enough symptom that you notice it like, oh my God, I feel indigestion. You just feel off. You feel stressed and you feel like your heart beating. Remember, there's a huge amount of people that go to the emergency room every year thinking they're having heart attacks. But it turns out to be indigestion. But if it felt like indigestion, they wouldn't have thought they were having a heart attack. You mean? So obviously there's symptoms it creates for yourself before it creates the feeling of just like coughing up bile.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never even
But
considered that, the gastrointestinal aspect of unease and the.
with the panic attacks, and the two most common causes of panic attacks are blood sugar drops, so you panic, and believe it or not, allergies, of course, because you feel like you can't breathe correctly. But I would put a third one in there that you never really hear about is your stomach. I think when some people get that kind of feeling in their stomach and they don't know where it's coming from, and it feels like they can't breathe, they start panicking.
Interesting. I've never even considered that. Wow. That is an interesting take on that all too. Just this is one of the things that you don't really think of throughout your day. Going back to nootropics, you're familiar with the Limitless movie.
I haven't actually watched it. I saw the trailer.
You should watch it. It's a great movie, But there's a drug in there like NZT48, and it is a nootropic where they take it, and then they can recall any moment throughout their life. They receive all the stimulus. They can they become their best selves. They use 100% of their brain. What do you think the closest drug that we have now, or the closest substance would be to that? I know like modafinil and armodafinil are like considered the closest stimulants and drugs to that, but what would your take on that be?
Fear.
Yeah.
This is drug you in your brain. Fear, where you're really recalling everything really quick because you have to, or you're gonna die. Yeah, a lot of adrenaline.
Okay. That makes
just
sense.
not so much you can't function, but a lot of adrenaline. I mean, I'm sure you felt that tip of the tongue feeling, and like you said, one time, you took coffee, and you felt better.
Yeah.
More adrenaline, more dopamine. In addition to less sleepiness.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that's going to increase dopamine to the point where you don't get manic, or if you're the kind of person who can control your mania.
Okay. What would you recommend to somebody who's looking to increase natural production of dopamine? I know tyrosine, like when people take caffeine for a really long time, their dopamine stores get depleted pretty heavily, and I've seen tyrosine recommended to people who want to replenish those stores of dopamine and serotonin. What would you kind of recommend for that? Do you think that'd be a good route to take for just feeling better?
I've always liked phenylalanine over tyrosine. I think it gives a better mood.
Okay.
Because it also lets your body produce more PEA, your natural speed. The thing you feel when you first fall in love or you're in your flow state.
Yeah.
That phenylalanine, you get more of that from phenylalanine than you do from tyrosine, apparently.
Okay.
In fact, I'll even use a D version of phenylalanine just to get that pure feeling.
Okay.
Where it feels, and if I do that with cardio, it feels amazing.
That's interesting.
You like get a high really fast, and you can just do it forever. Because it just feels, the more you do it, the better it feels.
Yeah. The really one of the things I hate, honestly, I always get that flow state feeling, or that the dopamine reaction in your brain when I'm trying to fall asleep. Right, you feel like you can conquer the world. You feel the confidence, the empowerment, and it's just like, if only I could feel this, the rest of my day versus this time when I'm trying to fall asleep.
You might be thinking of just an adrenaline rush as a flow state, but it's not. I don't think it's quite the same. It's not supposed to be quite the same thing. I don't think. A flow state is really something you're supposed to be getting into when you do like a real repetitive activity over and over and over again. Do you mean? And
yeah.
You do it for long, straight motion, straight through.
I guess I am separating that a little bit. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't necessarily think that you would get it from, like, say, just a rush when you're sleeping. Do you mean? Not that but it could be still reminiscent. It's probably the same neurotransmitters,
Mm-hmm. What do you think causes that? I know it's a little bit of a subject that everybody's probably felt at some point in their life, but they feel tired up to the point where they're supposed to fall asleep. What causes that? The feeling of alertness, the feeling of wakefulness when they're trying actively to calm down.
Well, you tend to feel that when you first lay down. You know what I mean? I mean, you're probably just changing your state, really. You just went from here to doing something different. You can walk outside and you probably wake up too. Do you mean?
Yeah.
So any kind of change of state. And a lot of times too, when you feel tired like that, it's because you're kind of at a low ebb, and then like maybe that day you didn't do very much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or that night especially, maybe you didn't do that much. So you're kind of cruising at a low energy level, and then when you get up, go do something to prepare for bed, you're actually kind of waking yourself back up again. They used to recommend for people that really had trouble sleeping that after dinner, a couple hours before you went to bed, go for a walk for half an hour, 40 minutes. Because then again, it makes you rise up so that when you're going to sleep, you feel like you're coming back down again.
That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
You want to create that, like when you're exhausted, like when you've worked all day long and then you worked out and you had a full day, maybe you woke up early, you don't have much trouble going to sleep.
Yeah, you're right. Some of the days where I've been most active are the days that I have the best sleep afterwards too, as well.
And also, if you wake up early, like people who wake up at 5:30 in the morning, they have no trouble going to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
They have trouble staying awake. Do you mean?
Yeah.
But if you're the kind of person who sleeps at different times all the time, your circadian rhythm's all messed up. You know what I mean? Maybe you didn't get up till 2 o'clock this afternoon, and now you're trying to go to bed at 11. good luck with that.
Yeah. There's some of those like crazy sleep schedules where it's like you take six like 20-minute naps throughout your day and then like the 2 hour.
Yeah.
Speaking on that,
Yeah, every 3 or 4 hours you do like a 15-minute thing. I forget what they call that. But yeah, I've heard of people doing that before. The problem is it's so hard with our lifestyles nowadays, unless you are self-employed to really do that.
for sure. What are some of the other nootropics that you'd recommend for people to get the most bang out of their buck for sleep specifically? The best substances to sleep the hardest, to get the most recovery, the most active, the best.
It might be polyphasic sleep they call it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
But anyway, not what you think it would be. Nothing to sedate you. Believe it or not, the things that give you the best sleep are things that amp your brain energy.
Interesting.
You see, the lower your brain energy, the less it wants to sleep.
Okay.
Like your brain's happening like in a medium area here. If it goes too low, you hear something called clonic spasms. You jerk awake a little bit.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're dying. It sends a message to the body going, "Hey, are you still alive down there?" You jerk awake. It shows. You know what I mean?
Would that be that?
You tend to get stuff like that.
Would that be that feeling? I don't know if you can relate to this, but like when you're in school and you're kind of dozing off, and then suddenly you just feel like you're in free fall. It only happens to me when I'm in school and falling asleep. Would that be that sort of reaction?
That could be that, or that could be a little more panic that you're falling asleep in school.
True.
Too, you know what I mean? You're just like, "Whoa, buddy, you better wake up."
Yeah.
But yeah, probably what you said. But mostly like you've been on the edge of sleep when you're in bed or something, and you just jerk awake.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you jerk awake like a violent jerk. You know?
Okay. I don't know if I've ever experienced like the violent jerk awake. For me, it's always you're kind of in that like that in between period of sleep where you look at the clock and then 45 minutes have passed and you feel
right.
Kind of just in between that wakefulness level. But what would for athletes who want to optimize workout intensity and get the most bang out of their buck for their workouts, but also want to recover the most, how would you recommend they approach that? Because I know it's kind of a which side wins the battle more often.
For sleep, you mean?
For sleep, just overall recovery.
Oh, I mean, you really need downtime to really recover. I mean, it depends on how conditioned you are. The more conditioned you are, the more you can do it without it really hurting you. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing: the less conditioned you are, the less you can do it. But the more you can do it, the more likely you are to quit by yourself.
True.
So it becomes self-limiting. So it's really the people in between sometimes got to watch it. You know?
Yeah.
And then serious athletes, if they're training for something specific, you know what you see for bodybuilders a lot, I think, is people training for a show, because now we're limiting their calories, and they're probably working too, and we're making them do a lot more training.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people I know by the time they to show, they're pretty depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're focused, doing a lot of stuff, but they're not in their right minds when they finish that. And for probably the first 4 weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks after they finish the show, they're probably still not in their right minds.
Their hormones are out of whack. They don't have enough adipose tissue to really maintain a good amount of hormone.
Yeah, not just that, but they've been basically forcing themselves to be in a deprived state.
Yeah.
For an artificially long time, while overworking them too. So it's almost equivalent of putting somebody in the fields, keeping them in the fields working, and not feeding them.
Yeah. Not allowing the body to recover really at all.
Right. Like what would happen to that person after 3 months or 4 months or 5 months? In this case, there's less stress because they're willing to do it. They're not being forced to do it, by whips and chains. But
yeah,
it's that thing. Recovery really is just building rest time into your workouts. It's really hard. Once you get the bit between your teeth, you don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So if I told you if you're working out 6 days in a row and you like it, and you're getting that habit, you don't want to stop. You just feel like you can't stop. You mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but building time into it is not too bad. Like maybe instead of doing a week, instead of looking at everything in terms of a week, why not look at things in terms of 2-week cycles? So if I'm going to do 5 days of training this week, why don't I start my 5 days of training the next week later?
Yeah.
So I'm in between them. Do you mean?
Yeah, just give your body a little bit more time to recover. I know there's that the bounce back theory. When you overtrain a lot, your performance will go down. But the second you give yourself time to recover, it shoots back up and over exceeds the mark where it was at before by quite a bit.
Right. It's what you want to do. So it's hard to say. When you get better at looking at your body, that's where coaching can come in. Like I know when I'm training people, it's kind of like I listen to them complain, and you differentiate between them just whining like bitches and them actually being like, "Hey, I'm getting tired now." Do you mean?
Yeah. When they actually need to rest versus when they kind of want to, when they're maybe a little bit tired that day or don't want to put in the work.
Yeah, and that's when you start putting some extra rest period into it. So when you're training somebody, you kind of want to train them a little harder than they need to be trained, because one, they're likely to slack a little bit when you're not there anyway.
Yeah.
And then two, because you can always take some time away and take some time off. So sometimes like I really I'm a big believer in like 3 days a week training. Like when I say 3 days a week, I mean three times in each body part really. So that could be a 6 day a week if they don't want to do complete body each day.
Yeah.
So, but then what I might do like for 2 weeks later is I might sit there and bring it down to 4 days and just throw an extra couple sets in. Do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting the same amount of sets per week, or almost the same amount of sets per week, but now we just have a much more abbreviated time period. And then I'll have them do the 4 days in the beginning of the week, and then not to the end of the next week. So there's a whole week break in between, but they still just do 2 weeks of training.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I hear a lot of them. I just saw something somewhere on YouTube maybe, and it was train like a lion, where you go hard, you go all out for your workouts, but then you spend the rest of the day relaxing. You know, you're maybe not exerting a ton of force on your body. You're allowing the recovery period. You're eating. You're fueling up for your next workout, so you can go ham again too.
Well, you know what the funny thing about that is, okay, here's where we get to the problem in like YouTube and Instagram. A lot of people that are showing you these workouts and people you're admiring do this for a living.
Yep.
So they don't have anything else to do. That's a big difference. So they can sit around all day long, go to the gym, then sit around all day night, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference to them. You got nothing else to do except make content. The second thing I think that gets really in the way with people too is like when they're making content, it's not necessarily the way they would normally want to work out. Do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at what they're doing and going, oh, wow, that's what they do.
They have that external factor of it being their job and people looking at them as a reason and a push to work out hard and to maybe train harder than they normally would.
That's true. But I mean, that may not be actually the workout they would normally do if left to themselves either.
Yeah.
They're doing that workout for display.
What do you
mean?
What do you think?
So it may, some of the workouts might not even be genuine because of that display.
What do you think would be different?
Sorry.
What do you think would be different if their workouts were genuine and if they were actually what they knew they were supposed to do versus what they think other people would want them to do?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's quite like that. I think it's more that they're trying to figure out something because they're going to record that day. You know what I mean?
Like maxing out or maybe stuff that the viewers want to see, do you think?
Not that, but they'll go, this is my arm workout for this day, but it may not be what they would normally do if they didn't have a camera on them. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. Because the way they put it together may not be the sequence of events that they would normally be in either. Because remember, when they give you a training montage, they're really trying to motivate you.
Yeah.
And and for selfish reasons too, because they're trying to motivate you to get more views, to get more subscribers, to get everything else.
To get that sweet ad revenue.
Well, it's part of the business that they do it too, and they enjoy doing it. And but that's not necessarily what they would be giving you if you bought their program, so to speak. If they had a program.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
People just have to be aware of that, and also because they do it for a living, or because they want to focus on certain things. Like I've seen people go to the gym and just deadlift for 2.5 hours with their partner. They're not doing that many sets, but that's all they want to do.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people nowadays that are a lot stronger than they used to be even a few years back that are never going to go to a powerlifting meet.
Mm-hmm.
Because with Instagram and YouTube, it becomes a big ego stroker to have the next heaviest weight.
Yeah.
It's like leveling up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a 300-pound bench. I've hit like the master level, or the intermediate level really. And then I'm at a 400-pound bench if you get to that, which is really great.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that everybody's pushing for because they can represent that weight on an Instagram post or a YouTube video. It's like, wow. You know what I mean? That's the equivalent of making levels in a video game.
I totally agree with you on that. Do you think
rushing through it, but
do you think Instagram and like the other social medias improved the fitness game? Like brought benefit to it or more benefit than it took away, in terms of comparing people comparing themselves to other people or having unnatural expectations of what they're actually going to achieve in the gym?
Well, you got to figure most people are probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
So if it motivates most people to go to the gym and they get a better work out of it, that's kind of really great. So no, I don't think it's worse. It's probably better because I think that extra motivation probably inspires a lot of people to go to the gym to begin with. They wouldn't necessarily do it, and a lot of people will think that body type is attainable.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, they tend to worship the people the most that have an attainable body type. They're not worship. Arguably in the grand scheme of things, any Mr. Olympia is going to have a better body than anybody else in a physique contest, right?
Yeah.
But they tend to look for the guy that they may be able to hit in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Not the person who might take 10 years or 12 years to get to that body type, or 15 years even. Do you ever notice Olympian people, the bodybuilders themselves, usually aren't real young? They've usually been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, many, many years in the game. 10 plus usually, that's what I've been seeing.
And on drugs.
Yeah, and on a boatload of PEDs and various.
But it's important too because it means like they're getting those incremental gains that they would naturally, but then they're adding drugs to it too. So what took them 10 years with drugs might have taken them 20 years to do it naturally. You mean?
Yeah.
If they gotten to that level with the amount of drugs that they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. How quick Well, what is the big of a difference between a person like, let's say, an average genetics? What do you think them progressing naturally versus progressing with external use, external substances? How big of
Well, when
a
you get it, assuming they got everything right, after the first 2 to 3 years, after the first like 3 years, there's going to be a serious drop off in their gains. Do you mean?
yeah.
So there wouldn't be that serious drop off in their gains if they were juicing. That's after 3 years,
Okay.
obviously. But now if they started from day one juicing, I don't know, it would be a whole different equation. It'd be hard to say. They certainly make their peak a lot quicker than they would normally.
Mm-hmm. What is your?
And again, sorry.
Sorry, no. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
And I keep wondering to myself too, how much now that I research this stuff more, how much of the stuff we're talking about is the genetics of muscle or the genetics of body fat distribution. I mean, I know I kind of harp on that, but if you got a good body fat distribution, you look like you have 20 pounds more muscle on you.
Yep.
I think that's what people see most of the time, and that's what they're admiring.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the kind of person whose body fat layers in everywhere else and not on your stomach, then you're maintaining a really, really lean look and a muscular look at a much higher percentage of body fat.
Yeah.
It just talks everything else and gives a nice rounded look to everything. I mean, a lot of that look that you're looking at is the way we hold body fat, not the way we're holding muscle.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can totally see that too.
Plus, I mean, I'm sure you did too. You've seen some really, really strong guys that are kind of scrawny.
Yeah.
And and when they try to gain on weight, they always gain the weight here.
Mm-hmm.
So they stay scrawny. They don't want to get fatter. You know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Guys that I know that keep their abs because they don't gain weight there, they don't mind putting on 20, 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Because it actually makes them bigger.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think, from a person who has a few years of experience, who isn't on any external substances, I want to hear your take on this. Do you think it's possible for them to be in a calorie deficit while gaining muscle mass?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you call muscle mass. You got back to your myofibrillar versus sarcoplasmic,
yeah,
stuff like that, and water, so it gets really weird. I think lean mass would be a better way of putting it. It's probably possible to gain what we consider to be lean mass, definitely at a calorie deficit, up until a point.
Okay.
Like if you're training for a show and you're natural, there's a pretty good chance you're not putting much lean mass on.
Yeah.
Especially several weeks into it. Do you mean?
Yeah.
When you're looking better, you might actually get a better look overall, a harder, more mature look or whatever, but you're probably not really putting on a lot of lean mass. In fact, I would wager you almost can't put on a lot of lean mass versus where you started from because you are at that serious calorie deficit. But if you're just dieting regularly and you're dieting for periods of time with little breaks in between, you can probably definitely put on some muscle mass.
Okay.
Or lean mass, rather.
What do you think are
again? It really depends just where you're at and how big the deficits are and stuff like that.
Yeah. What do you think would be a good calorie deficit for someone who has, like, let's say 18% body fat, pretty decent amount of fat on them? And what do you think a good deficit would be to perform a successful body recomposition from that moderate body fat level?
Well, okay. I mean, if you think in terms of calories, right? So you take your maintenance calories. The idea is every 3,500 calories that you can deviate per week or minus per week is a pound of body fat. It doesn't really work out that way, but that's what the math would say. So if you drop 1,000 calories a day, you could theoretically lose 2 pounds of body fat a week. Again, it doesn't work out quite that way.
Yeah.
You mean? So it really depends on what you can take. There's times when I can diet really extremely and I'm fine with it. There's other times when I can't really diet. My brain just doesn't want to let me do it. Do you mean?
Yeah.
So if you can do it, what I'd probably tell you to do is see how long you can diet for at a calorie deficit of maybe 750 to 1,000 calories.
That's interesting.
And then every so often take a 2-day break. Because it seems like it takes about 2 days now. That's what they're talking about nowadays anyway. 2 days to reset your metabolism up at least a little bit higher.
Okay. That's interesting.
But that's why we do other things too. Let's say we want to enhance your metabolism. Chances are you're not really going to enhance your metabolism more than it normally is. So normal eating, normal training, normal life, this is what it is. So probably your metabolism enhancers, if you take them then, aren't going to do that much more than you're already getting.
Yeah.
But I guess they could make you a little more active. You know what I mean? Which is fine too. When you're dieting though, they can definitely increase that. So when you're dieting, you feel less energy. We give you something that gives you more energy. Your metabolism goes back up again. Because remember, your metabolism is only really two things: how much you weigh and how much you move that weight around. Yep. So the cool thing is, like, you're like 200 pounds now, 185 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So if we put you next to a 100-pound girl, and you both walk a mile, you're burning off twice the amount of calories she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because you're heavier, right? That's why it's so hard for girls that are lighter to lose weight. Because you could be a 125-pound girl and need to lose 10 pounds. It's a real bitch.
Yep.
Because your calories go so low to do it. So anyway, getting back to your original question, if you take about 16 times your body weight and you subtract 750 to 1,000, that's probably a good rule of thumb for about a 1.5 to 2 pounds a week loss. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And then you got to adjust it by real life. Like you might actually burn off more calories, in which case you don't need that big deficit.
For sure.
It tends to be self-correcting though. If you try to do too big of a deficit, you start getting hungry, and it
Yeah.
kind of claps back at you.
For
What
sure.
I noticed too is like if you've been eating normally for a long time, it's easier to diet for a while. If you've been dieting off and on, it's hard to start dieting and stick with it for a while. Do you mean?
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Your body kind of adjusts to your pain level, so to speak.
Yeah, it's very interesting how our bodies kind of correct ourselves and just like especially I think this can be applied for training too when you're going really hard in the gym and then you get sick. You know, it kind of brings you back to that rest, the homeostasis point where you kind of should be at for the most optimal performance too. Is it calories in?
Your body. Sorry.
Is it calories in, calories out, or do you? I know that.
At the end of the day,
Sorry, what's up?
sorry. You're like kind of like faking a little bit. It's in terms of total everything, calories in, calories out is the best way to think about it. There's things you manipulate in there that make a difference. For example, when you lower carbs, you hold less water, in which case you look less fat because don't forget water kind of layers in everywhere. Do you mean?
Yeah.
And also at the same time, holding less water makes you feel better. You mean more weight loss in general.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, of course, if you go back to eating the same amount of carbs, the water weight goes back up again.
For sure.
It's a good way to do it. Also, less carbs for a lot of people tends to mean they're less hungry.
Yeah.
It depends on your makeup. Like some people eat carbs and they have no trouble at all. The more carbs I eat, the hungrier I get. So I've got to watch that. Do you mean?
Yeah. For sure.
Whereas if I keep my carbs really low, I can really not be hungry or nowhere near as hungry as I used to be. So it really just depends on where you're at with that. And I think maybe the more body fat you carry or have carried to fast, the more carb sensitive you might be.
Interesting.
But it depends on different people. So at the end of the day, though, it's mostly going to be calories in, calories out. I'll give you cheesecake all day long. If it matches your calorie profile, you lose weight.
Yeah.
In fact, there used to be diets like that, like the ice cream diet or something like that, where that's all they're eating because they knew that most people, unless they're gluttons, wouldn't eat that much of it.
Yeah.
You know, but there are gluttons out there. There used to be this program years ago that used to say, take 1 hour to eat. You mean they would say like this, eat one cheat meal and just make sure the cheat meal isn't longer than an hour. Do you mean like they were trying to give you like little things to box you in? There were people that literally would set a time, like a watch and start how much they could eat at a buffet in 60 minutes.
That's funny.
I'm tired of doing it. Because originally they started with 24 hours. There were people that literally would start a clock minute 1 and they would eat as much as they could in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
People get crazy. Like I've seen women with gastric bypass,
Yeah.
you know, where they stomach shut. Literally, because you don't have that much room, right? They'll melt chocolate and whipped cream and drink it.
Oh my gosh.
People get weird about food.
They do. Wow. Yeah, people take things to such an extreme level, especially when they're trying to lose weight, when they're trying to achieve a certain outcome with their body.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel super motivated, ride that. I mean, don't hurt yourself, but if you feel super motivated, ride that. And if you're willing to be really intense, like if you sat there and said, you know, James, I feel like dieting. I'm going to diet 500 calories, and I'm going to do 2 a days, and I feel wonderful about it. I'd be like, go for it, because you don't always feel that way. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Like you ride those waves when they come in, so to speak.
There's a Marine I'm friends with, but when he was trying to get into and to reach the body weight that he needs to like enter into the military, I remember we were lifting one day. It was like this kid went crazy, and he was so motivated to the point where he lowered his calories to 500 a day.
Wow.
And yeah, and when I say this kid ate 500 calories a day, he ate 500 calories a day. That was like to level motivation. He just had that level of push to where it was maintainable for him, and he lost the weight. He got into the Marines, and he's doing really good now. After like this, went from obese to lean.
You got to be careful how long you do it. Usually, the longer you extremely diet, the more you have to take a break.
Yeah.
Like I remember last year, I made a mistake of I dieted too much. At the very end of it, I was like walking maybe 8 or 9 miles a day just to maintain the activity level.
Wow.
And then on top of that, sometimes even 10 or 11 miles. And then on top of that, my calories was a serious deficit and mostly protein only. And then I was like, wow, this is really working. Let me do it for an extra week or two. And all it takes that extra week or two to really screw you up.
Yeah.
I felt sick for months afterwards.
Oh my.
I mean, I did not feel well for months. I really just overdid it.
Was it your central nervous system that took the hit from that, do you think?
Probably.
Okay.
Your brain. I mean, you're not even getting the right calories at that point, too. Not only are you low calorie, but your nutrients are low. Even the fat I was getting was low. You need a certain amount of fat just to maintain your hormones correctly. I wasn't even getting to that. You mean?
Yeah.
But it was working. But believe it or not, you're actually better off if you're gonna diet extreme to do almost like a punctuated equilibrium where you maintain a really low calories and then maybe 2 days a week at high calories. You mean?
Yeah.
average it out that way if you need to do something like that. Because here's the one cool thing: if you vary your calories a lot, and sometimes put in some extra carbs, you can kind of manipulate your water retention a little bit better. Because it seems like when you diet heavily, you tend to hold more water, which can be demoralizing because you could lose 4 or 5 pounds, right, and actually hold that much water, and you don't think you're losing anything.
Yeah,
It'll go with your head. If you think about it, when you talk about like training for a contest, a lot of that's water manipulation.
it is.
They lose 10 pounds of water when they first start dieting, right? But they might lose another 10, 12 pounds of water the last week of their contest.
Yeah.
So they don't lose as much fat as people think they lose. They just manipulate the water a lot. Now, some bodybuilders are really naturally lean to begin with, and they don't have to do very much of that. It really just depends. But I've seen people sitting there in the sauna 2 days before the show trying to suck out an extra 5 pounds, you know?
Yeah, especially when you get into like water manipulate. When you start manipulating the water and the liquid that you're taking it to, it can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's actually more bodybuilders probably kill themselves through diuretics and dehydration than anything else.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing multiple shows. Like I had a friend of mine do like 3 shows in a row because he wasn't quite ready for the show he wanted to do. And he finally got ready for it at the very end. He did really well. He was not a happy person.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know what I mean? He was not looking good. He was not feeling good.
How do you fight the negative effects of being in such a deficit or such an extreme in your body? So there's a point where you don't get sick, where you have somewhat of a high energy level. How would you go about achieving that?
Well, you have fat burners you can take, obviously, and the nootropics help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can boost your. I mean, I hate to say it, but frequent breaks. You know, if you're low, you're only going to lose so much in a certain amount of time, no matter what. You know what I mean? You just got to face up to that. So losing an extra half a pound may not be worth it. It might be just more worth it to take an extra 2 days and eat normally for those 2 days, reset your metabolism, notch up, and feel human.
Yeah.
And also, it's always hard to say how much body fat you have to lose versus how much water. So a lot of times, what you actually probably don't necessarily need to lose as much as you think you do. It's just you need to somehow manipulate that water out of your body. If that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they did it. There was something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, continue that. You're good.
So they did this thing called a Minnesota starvation experiment in World War II, right? Where they took a whole bunch of conscience objectors who apparently volunteered to starve down to concentration camp levels.
Yep.
We're talking extremely.
I'm familiar with the study you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Made them walk 2 hours every day to maintain a basic activity level. Blah 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 blah. Well, halfway through it, they gave them a victory meal for the halfway point, right? Yep. And they all dropped a huge amount of weight. They all dropped a huge amount of water weight. And then they said the same thing happened at the very end of the study. They started refeeding them, and they all started dropping more weight because again, they were holding so much water from the extreme dieting.
Yeah.
That probably happens to women even more than men, which probably gets in their head too, because women have even more serious water balance issues than we do. But I will say this: the fatter you ever been, the more water balance issues you're going to have.
Okay. Yeah.
And a greater deviation in your look too. Like I used to tell people all the time, if you love the way you look to 180, bulked up to 220 and came back to 180, you won't like it so much.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks different.
It does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you got to get to 175 to hold the 180 look.
Your whole body composition changes when you start manipulating all these different variables.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when you put the body fat on it.
I know this in this study especially, it probably wasn't taken into account as much, but how much does one's metabolism change when they do reach the single digits body fat, from going from double digits 20 to 8 to 6, like that range?
Well, okay, I mean, keep in mind that when we talk about percentage of body fat, we're usually talking about conventions because we can't really measure their body fat. You mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only accurate way to measure somebody is an autopsy, and they're not coming back from that one.
Yeah.
So, pod and all that kind of stuff aside. Okay, so there's a definite slowdown. But here, I think the lower your body fat percentage gets in the single digits, the more likely you are to start cannibalizing muscle and stuff like that. My understanding is, but usually at that point you're pretty lean.
Yeah.
Like you're not even just lean; you're really lean by the time you're cannibalizing muscle. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Especially if you're protein high enough, because they did something called you've heard of protein sparing modified fast before?
Yep.
Where they're trying to find as much protein as you can eat, basically to maintain no muscle loss, basically.
Yes.
And they found that they could bring people down to like 100 grams of protein a day, and that's all they were eating, and they'd hold their muscle.
It's people think that they need to eat a lot more protein than they really need to as well. I see fitness people who sell a protein supplement, obviously, and they're recommending like 2.5 to 3 times your body weight in protein a day, like just ridiculous amounts. When in reality, like most people are going to be perfectly fine with 50% of their lean mass in protein, can convert to protein.
Yeah, especially if you're not in a calorie deficit.
Yep.
Although I will admit that if you get a higher percentage of your calories in protein versus other things, you do tend to look leaner and harder.
Yep.
There's a hardness look to it that comes.
Protein is harder to burn. I read a study
right.
where it doesn't convert that well into energy compared to fats and carbs.
Correct. So it goes down to like it's not like they transfer to fat at all, but it also seems to act like almost like a delayed action carb would be, because of gluconeogenesis. It kind of goes down there and starts producing like that kind of thing. But so it's almost like you just stay harder all the time from it. Do you mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird the way that works. But you're right. You don't really need to. Now, if you diet, you probably need more protein if you want to hold that, that harder look.
What would you recommend?
Glycogen. What
for
dieting?
Yeah, for what amount of protein per their body weight, per their lean mass would you recommend them to?
Usually I recommend 1 gram per pound of body weight, because most people won't hit that number anyway.
Yeah.
Do you mean? So if you're 200 pounds and you're trying to get 200 grams of protein a day, you're probably hitting about 160, 150, probably about where you want to be anyway. Do you mean?
Yeah.
A little bit hard, especially if you're trying to build muscle. Remember, you're trying to build it, not just, just maintain it. There's a difference there too,
How much does consuming a lot of carbs, they have the protein sparing effect. How much does carbs affect, having a lot of carbs in your system affect the protein levels that are being used for muscle protein synthesis versus being burned for energy?
Well, I think it's almost like a 1-to-1 in some ways. Like, but again, it could be because of the way your body's processing. It also depends on what they're talking about. Do you mean?
Yeah.
But I guess we're talking about lean mass. So I think in that particular case, like if you're pretty low calorie and you're getting 200 grams of protein, it's a low carb diet. If you put 50 grams of carbs in there, you could probably take it away from the protein category and kind of get the same effect. Do you mean?
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's what you're saying right now. You got to, but ultimately, you got to play with it in the real world.
Yeah.
And a lot of it gets weird. Like, the fatter you are, the harder it is to tell what's working or not working.
Yeah.
Do you mean? You really can't see it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would you recommend to somebody who's struggling to diet down? Just like a very basic thing that anybody can do just to lose a few pounds.
Oh, okay. Create a menu.
Okay.
If you're just trying to lose a couple pounds, I'd probably tell you to create a menu, and then say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, a couple calories lower. Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, eat normally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, not like because that's a pretty slow loss. Unless they're a good dieter. If they're pretty good at stuff like that, they can always manipulate that down. Maybe 5 days a week of not. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Of less food, and then if that's what they're doing. Otherwise, there's tricks you can do if you're sort of bodybuilding and you want to change your look, which would be to go even lower in a couple of days, and maybe up by 10% on the other day. You mean?
Yeah.
Try to get a recomp.
And that does sound a pretty good strategy to approach that. God, this honestly, man, we've been talking for so long, and it's felt like just a few minutes. Like I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down.
No problem at all.
Perfect. Kind of wanted to focus on this too, just because it's something that fascinates me so much. Before we end it off, but what do you see in the future of genetic engineering? How do you see in the next 100 years? What do you expect to progress in the technology?
I mean, we're already getting to a point where we can grow tissue, right? So that's pretty big.
Yeah.
The biggest thing would be if they can stumble on something that's anti-aging, I suppose.
True.
If they can extend human lifespan, that would dramatically increase progress too, because now you have some people with big brains that can use that brain for longer.
Yeah.
So that becomes a really, really steamrolling effect. If you could take, your biologist, your physicist, and give them 25, 30, 40 more good years on that level of discipline, that's a long time to be thinking.
It is.
So yeah, that's probably the news. You're going to start seeing some diseases start fading out. You're going to start seeing like probably some life extension type of thing.
Yeah.
If nothing else, the first thing you'll start seeing is closer to your maximum lifespan, and then probably in better shape, looking younger while you're closer to your maximum lifespan. Do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then hopefully it'll extend from there.
Do you think we'll ever have like Captain America, like super soldiers who their DNA's been modified to allow them to use more of their muscle? Like something not maybe like lifting buildings, but just performing at a very peak level compared to somebody who isn't trained?
Probably. I mean, they're probably. I mean, first of all, we have chemicals that can do that now, theoretically.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could justify doing that, justify giving steroids and stuff like that to people in basic training, you'd have a bigger soldier than the average soldier pretty quickly.
True.
But that's something that would be pretty equalized by everybody back and forth. I mean, I don't know if you'd see a soldier cascade, so to speak, where like you have certain people born into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one because
epigenetic level where people are. It's more of like a caste system, where almost
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, like, you see that kind of thing. And plus, technology itself, what you can put, it'd be probably easier to put somebody in a mechanized suit.
Yeah.
It is to genetically alter him to become, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Super. You can still blow him in pieces.
Yeah, for sure.
From a distance. You know?
Yeah, we're really not
I mean,
focused more on just advancements of technology when it comes to warfare versus furthering human strength in a sense. I think
right.
it's gonna be crazy seeing the next I heard it somewhere. I was listening to a podcast somewhere, but they said that in the next 100 years we're gonna see 10,000 years of technological development just because we've reached a point where we're able to do so much with what we have, and it's just exponential growth at a certain point too.
Well, the big thing is the availability of information. So it's like for the first time in history, you, if you're putting around your garage, have access to inventions that have been around for hundreds of years and the schematics for them and the science behind them. I mean, it just creates a huge amount of ability to do things and process back and forth. Think about it. The ancient Greeks had automation. The ancient Greeks actually had built a steam engine.
Yeah.
Nothing to use it for. But had it been out there and everybody knew about it, somebody would have found a use for it.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, there's all these things that have been probably invented spontaneously over the years, over the centuries, that they never grew on it. Apparently, the Egyptians could do surgery on the eye and on the brain,
Oh my god, I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
but then it just fades, right? Because and especially back then when everything was kind of a secret.
Yeah.
If you were a guild system and you had done that, it stayed in your guild, right? You didn't disseminate to everybody.
You didn't want to
The
be
internet-
executed for just defying the natural law of all things.
Yeah, or just you didn't want to share.
Yeah.
There was money involved, stuff like that. I mean, we're a little bit like that now when it comes to patenting drugs, things along those lines. But usually, the knowledge behind it is pretty available.
It's interesting seeing different societies where creativity is just not it's almost hampered, where there's like places like North Korea or Russia where they there's so many laws against like just being thinking and just being open, and it just really hampers like overall productivity, and they're advancing at a much slower level than we are in essence.
Well, think about it this way: if you're at the top, you want to stay at the top, right?
Yep.
You kind of like being there, so you're going to put things in place to limit the people around you.
Yep.
I think it was Vidal Gorvidal gets credit for this, but as other people said this over the years, it's not enough for me to succeed. You have to fail.
Yeah.
And that's actually a common idea. There's only 8 pieces of pie here. If I give somebody else, that means one less I can have.
Exactly.
And that's a big theory of economics, that scarcity mentality.
I read something somewhere. It was a study done where people were asked if it was either like them and like the neighbor they disliked, they could both live happily, or they could they could inflict pain on themselves, but the other person would it would happen to them too. And everyone picked, instead of just living happily alone and separated, they picked delivering pain, like the one where the other person was hurt too. Yeah.
That's pretty common. Vindictiveness, it's a lack of emotional control. I think we view it as a lack of emotional control. But don't forget, the veneer of civilization is very thin. They used to say that you're only 3 meals away from revolution in any given country.
Yep.
And it's true. I remember reading an essay or something about that. They were talking about the foundation of certain kind of revolutions. And they said like the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution in the previous century, they really didn't. Obviously there was talk and everything, but they really didn't happen until women and children couldn't get food anymore.
Yep.
Once that happened, there was a revolution. Before that, there's ideas, there's thoughts, there's oppression. But when you can't feed people at that basic family level, that's when you're going to see the riots, the wars and stuff like that. You mean?
Yeah, especially like speaking like nowadays too. There's a lot of debate on like what the death rate of the coronavirus is, and it can all be, people can say whatever they want to say, but I'm more scared of how other people act on their fear than the actual virus itself. It's really terrifying, especially when people as a whole get scared, what they're willing to do to protect themselves, or what they to do what they're going to think they protect themselves. I remember I went to the grocery store during my lunch break, and during like when it was kind of getting hyped up in the media, and people were stealing toilet paper off of other people's carts at such an extreme level for such, in essence, like a minor occurrence. Like fear does crazy things to people. It really it manipulates them a ton.
That toilet paper thing had to have been like a meme on the internet that got out of hand or something. Because that is a weird thing for everybody to go nuts about.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Toilet paper is not like it's not a tradable commodity later for like food and money, probably. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe it will be, but like it had to be something that just got out of hand, because I never heard of it being like that. Because there's obviously been hurricanes or whatever, but you really never heard the toilet paper thing before. Do you mean?
What I think it is like it's something that spiraled out of control. So maybe like internet memes were created about it, and then it maybe created the worry for people not having toilet paper, and then other people saw the people rushing for the toilet paper, so they did too, and it's just this downward spiral to where there's no toilet paper left.
The funny thing about it too is my understanding is all the stores are not going to take toilet paper back. That's the end of the thing.
Yeah.
So you can have people stuck with like 200 rolls of toilet paper.
I heard there's one place in like Canada where this person tried to return like 150 20 packs of toilet paper, and the manager just straight up said, "F you, I'm not taking this. You're a terrible human being."
Yeah, there's apparently almost no returns right now because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
No one wants to take anything back, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The panic is bad, and it doesn't help that the media itself. I shouldn't say the media though, but we're a clickbait society. So
Yep.
They tell us on YouTube, don't do clickbait, but the media's full of clickbait.
Yep.
I mean, every message I get on my phone is a clickbait expression.
Yep.
You wouldn't believe what happened to this person. And we're talking about ABC, Fox, whatever.
Everyone does it. Everyone does it.
Yeah, and they're just they're ghouls. They love this shit. They're always going to take the worst case scenario because it sells.
There is no good side in this whole like media situation because every single one of them thrives off of the ad revenue they get from the people clicking on them. Right. So they're going to exaggerate stories. They might not lie, but they're going to manipulate information. And
there's very little real news anymore. Like what I call real news is like matter of fact, something that isn't trying to draw the conclusion for you.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's not. They're not going to sit there and say this person did this today. They're going to say this evil person with these evil intentions, backed by these evil people, did this today. Do you mean? And that's what we hear all the time. We hear all news with context because most news that's out there on these major channels are commentary, not really news.
Yeah.
But they're reporting the news from the commentary point of view, and most people just don't know the difference. Yeah. So they eat that up. I mean, look how angry people get nowadays because they listen to their favorite news channels all the time, and they just feed into all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
This person's evil, this person's not evil, and it goes back and forth.
It's really unfortunate. I feel like so many people nowadays, they're so much worried about the news and like especially politics. I see this with politics all the time. They're more worried about politics than they are their own lives. When in reality, so many of the problems that they're experiencing that they think that politics are going to solve can truly be solved by themselves if they just divert that attention. They can still keep up with the times and still keep up with different things that are happening, but just the amount of worry and the amount of stress that they waste over the clickbait, the politicians, the beef on social media, it can be really spent towards bettering themselves and self-improvement.
Well, you figure it's about, think of it this way, like it's a distraction. I mean, we live this way. If we had to remove all distractions from our life and we just had our own life to fix, wow, that would suck, wouldn't it? I mean, seriously, because usually you can't make progress really quickly.
Yeah.
It's like lifting. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like 6 months or a year from now, Oh yeah, go get that second job. If you make an extra $150, $200 a week, that'll add up over 6 months. Nobody wants to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We just would talk about, they used to call that the water cooler culture. Like you go to work and you talk about the latest piece of gossip, in your breaks. But now it's like it follows you everywhere with their phones, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. I mean, and you really never get a break from it.
It starts from the moment you wake up and look at your phone to the moment you put your phone down and go to bed.
Yeah, I'm about to start turning. I don't even how my news alert thing come on. Where now it's not just the regular alerts for something serious. Mm-hmm. Now it's this Fox just freaking sending shit to me all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, have you seen this? Oh my God, have you seen that? I'm like, no, and I wouldn't have wanted to if you hadn't.
Yeah. But now I'm interested and you've piqued my attention, so now I'm going to take the time out of my day that I don't want to take out of my day to look at this article that's not going to have any benefit to my life.
Yeah, but if you have a pretty good idea what's going on, mentally ask yourself what the article is about before you even read it. And I bet it's fairly predictable to you no matter what. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's not much new happening these days.
Some of the interesting stuff going on, though, they're saying Kim Jong-un's dead or brain dead or in a vegetative state. That's actually... That's because
from COVID-19, or they try to kill him, you think?
No, he had a botched surgery, like from being overweight, like a cardiovascular surgery, and it's being verified by like the Chinese government, who's like sent a team in to help them and stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting seeing how that plays out, if it's even true. Maybe he just disappeared and went on a holiday for a week.
Well, apparently his father kidnapped a famous director from South Korea, so he could teach him how to make movies. And then he escaped, which probably means he just released him, later.
That sounds like a very North Korean thing to do.
It's a very dictatorial thing to do. Imagine if you were a dictator of everything, you're like, I really need to work out better. I'm going to go kidnap, name 3 fitness people right there, have them come in and trade me. And when I'm done with them, I'll either execute them or release them.
Yeah.
I don't do that. And then you're like, what? I want to learn how to do more JavaScript. Who's doing JavaScript? Bring me that person. You know what I mean?
It's fascinating, the mindsets, like what we talked about earlier. When you stifle creativity and when you stifle individual, I can't even speak. Individuality so much in these countries, it hampers everything. Like you don't have what other places are 100 years ahead of you because people aren't thinking for themselves anymore. You're not allowing them to think. And then you have to go and kidnap directors of movies to learn how to create cinematography because of that.
Well, I mean, and that's a good way of putting it because you think about it, like some places in the Middle East, are still operating on the 14th, 15th century, right?
Hmm.
They're just actually dated by our points of view.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just dated. It'd be like running into an Aboriginal tribe down in South America. They're still working on the Stone Ages.
Hmm.
Don't even have metal utensils, some of them. You know, you're like, wow. Do you mean? And they're actually operating on that level. So it's kind of like,
Did you hear
you know,
about
it
the
made,
Did you hear about that phenomenon when, like during World War II, when we went and occupied a ton of islands by Japan, and a bunch of these tribal communities, they saw these people come in, these gods to them, and after they left, they recreated, like they made planes out of like wood, not like nothing that would work. They made towers like the people constructed in hopes that they would come back or like summon them back one day, or that they would maybe be like them. But yeah, it's crazy.
no, I actually never heard about that. It reminds me, there was a movie years ago called The Gods Must Be Crazy. And it's like the Coke can falls from the sky and hits this guy in the
I
head.
know what you're talking
They pick
about.
it up.
Yeah,
It must come from God, you know. And
yeah,
they end up like partying 100 miles across the. Yeah,
yeah. It's fascinating, human psychology, and like how crazy, how different it is. Like even like in the small world that we live in, like when you look at like the scale of the universe, like it's fascinating. Like how different our lives are from people across the world, and just all that stuff. How distance.
especially we're so insulated from everything else
Yeah,
here. I mean, we don't. I mean, if you lived in Europe, you'd be traveling different countries. You'd see a little bit more of it. You mean
yeah,
here, everything's homogenized into like this. You know, this is what America is. You know,
yeah.
half the people, and we went to someplace else like Mexico. We go to a resort.
Hmm.
You know, we go to it's basically a little United States that speaks Spanish.
Where the cartels put up walls separating the ghettos that are right
Yeah.
outside the resorts.
They went to tourist money, yeah.
It's crazy. It's fascinating. Perfect.
This was Canada, I guess, our neighbors in North, but they're kind of like,
They're similar.
yeah,
They're similar. You know, not terribly different from us. But I just want to thank you for joining me today, James. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
yeah, it was good meeting you.
Perfect. Well,
Sorry, my camera messed up.
no, don't worry about it. You know, your setup's probably better than mine is, even at the state that it's in for yours right now. But where can they find you on social media?
Just Instagram and YouTube.
Okay, I'll link you in the down below, of course. Then, but thank you again for joining me. This was a great conversation. I think the viewers probably could really benefit a ton from some of the knowledge. I know you have a much larger fan base than I do, so even still, go follow him. This guy knows more about supplements than literally half of the fitness industry combined. And his knowledge is just huge. You know, make sure you go to follow this guy on social media, like his pages, just drive him up in the ranks. But thanks again, man. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem at all. I'll talk to you on Instagram.
For sure.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.